Hey, welcome to today's
Special edition
of Girl Talk. But today we have a special guest. We're still doing Girl Talk, but we're joined by our favorite guy, my favorite guy. This is my husband, Kevin. Everybody knows him and loves him as Pavi, calls him Pavi. And we are going to be talking about a lot of things that have to do with guys and girls. So, glad you're here to listen to our just conversation about, because it's Valentine's
Day. Yep.
And, it's all romance and love and so all your questions, about love and romance and everything. Yes. We're here to just talk about that.
Yes. This is the beginning of a series. Series is my new favorite word.
Okay.
So we're coming at you. You're going to hear lots of stuff that you're just going to want to hear more of. So, stick around.
Yes.
It's always a good choice just to stick around.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on in our lives every day. There's a lot of stress in our lives every day because there are a lot of people that we want to feel loved, and that's the one thing that I've learned so much from Kevin. Is he always, when he checks on me, he's saying, "How are you doing? What's going on?" And because he can tell when I'm starting to get overwhelmed and stressed about things, or I just don't like whatever's going on, and he'll always just stop and he'll say, "I just want you to feel loved. What can I do to help you?" And because of that, you have created a safe place for me, and to feel like I want to love you back. And because you've done that in our marriage, then that's the trickle down effect. So on a daily basis, when you're dealing with life and stress and everything, and of course we pray, but how do you overcome the temptation to just, I don't know, most people lose it, or whatever you want to call it. How do you overcome the temptation to just do what feels good in the moment?
Well, I think there's two things that come to mind. There's how I think in the flesh when I'm not, quite thinking in the spirit or praying as much, and it reminds me of T.D. Jakes saying, if you have enough trouble, you'll start listening. And so there's part of life where you're like, you have great responsibilities, and the wrong choice is going to create problems, and you don't really want more trouble. And so there's that aspect, but there's also, you want in our relationships, you nurture the relationship. It's like the word says, a man that loves his wife loves himself. So there's, I think, just a wisdom in caring for your spouse, the people in your life, in the proper right way. And I think that's a big element missing in relationships. The deception is a relationship should benefit me because look what all I'm putting into it, and that's like a poison that will bite you.
Wow.
And so, so there's that aspect of every relationship carries a weight to it. It carries the significance of that person and the way you relate to them, how God sees that person. It's all there, and we feel it and sense it, whether we think it through or not. And that's usually where a lot of our emotions that are in a wreck come from. And so there's that aspect, but there's also so we want to build up those that we're in relationship with, because if we don't build them up, if we tear them down, we're still in relationship with them. Like, it just makes you think when somebody says, "How can I make you feel loved right now? How can I help you feel valuable and feel something more than just what you're experiencing?" I think that's how God sees us. And so when I feel like you're going through something, and I just want to give your mind some positive thoughts, I just want to help you to see, that's tough. it's going to come to pass, but how can I at least balance out what you're feeling? I think when I'm having those thoughts, it's like the Spirit saying, yes, and that's how I feel about you too. You know, that's how I feel about all my children. You know, I'm not bothered that they're struggling. I'm not upset. I actually would rather them know how I feel about them, and I would rather them feel loved and feel valued, and I would rather that be their focus.
I love that. When you were saying that, I was thinking about how the verse that says Jesus did not come to condemn the world, but to save it. You know, so quickly as parents and spouses, we are quick to criticize when someone's doing something wrong. But you just explained how instead of, you know, criticizing from that viewpoint of you're not doing it right, know that there's something wrong, and we can go to each other and say, hey, I see that something's bothering you. How can I help you? Or how can I just help for a minute, so you can just take a deep breath and we can remember the truth in this situation. And I think that we're only going to get that if we've spent time with the one who is that way, which is spending time in the Word, you know, and just growing in the Word, growing in the truth, choosing to spend time with Him and walk and talk with Him and hear from Him is what's going to change that on the inside of us. Like, we can't give love, because that is giving love, until we have love. And God is love, so if we don't have real love, we're not going to be able to give love.
Yeah, and you know, I'm thinking about all the different things that go through our minds that Satan tries to tempt us, trick us, trap us, and put us, and some of us are in a position where we are trapped by sin, by a bad habit, by condemnation. And you know, God values us the way He does, and in someone that's in sin, as we all have been, it's easy to think, oh, I better stop this sin because he's going to judge me. He's angry with me, and he's probably thinking this about me, and I think that God is thinking, you really need to stop that sin, because I still feel the same about you. And what I felt about you before, and what I felt about you in the beginning, I still feel the same. And that's why you can't keep doing whatever it is you're doing. And that's the goodness of God that leads men to repentance. You know, and
kindness, yeah.
So I just always like to speak that, because I didn't understand that, you know, as even a young believer, and especially not when I was lost. You know, I thought it had a lot to do. I thought God's thoughts about me had a whole lot to do with whether or not I was good or bad, or whether I understood His word or understood Him, or anything else that the devil could throw at me to keep me in confusion. But, you know, if I could say anything, the greatest motivation in life is to truly know God and how He loves us. And, you know, Paul said that he had experienced so many things. He knew so much of the Old Testament law. He knew so much of the Spirit. And he said towards the end of his life that what he still wanted to know was the depth of God's love. He was captivated by that, and that was what he was constantly drawn back to. And so I can see God working. I'm not saying I'm like Paul. I'm just saying I can see God's Spirit, that same pattern in my life, that the longer I live, the more challenges I face, I just want to know more about how much He loves me, because it always ends up being the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
love is always the answer in every situation. And it's kind of what you touched on a minute ago about relationships. No matter what relationship you're looking at, whether it's ours or the children's or a customer or whatever, you want to protect that relationship. And kind of the biggest question, since it's Valentine's Day, right, you know, is romance, and what is romance, and what is love in a romantic way of thinking. And because we have a lot of people, whether they're girls or boys or moms or dads, that that feel lonely, or maybe they're trying to figure out relationships. Lots of young girls, and I know families have a lot of young boys, and everyone. We all want to know how to navigate relationships because we're in them every day. And girls, that's always the topic, is dating and boys and all that kind of stuff. And so from a guy's point of view, from a dad's point of view, if you were talking to your daughter, let's start there. If you were talking to your daughter about boys, okay, what would you say?
Well, having learned most lessons, the few that I've learned or think I've learned, having learned them the hard way and the wrong way, and then hopefully the right way, I would, this comes to mind. Most of us know or think we know what's on the other side of trying to get what we want. It's usually not what we expect. Every once in a while it may be, and then we realize that what we expected is not what we expected. And so, I think romance is the same way, in a sense, and it all depends on how you view that word, or how you determine the meaning of that word romance. Because what I would challenge, if I could know something when I was a young man, or if someone could have sat me down and challenged me, this is what I think would have helped. You know what's on the other side of you trying to get what you want. Let's say you do know what that is. Let's say it's the pleasure, it's the attention, or whatever it is you think you're going to get. Okay, let's say you know what that is, which it usually is not, and it always comes with more trouble than it's worth. But I would have loved to have been challenged in a way that says, what's on the other side of true romance, of what's on the other side of true integrity, what's on the other side of choosing the more difficult decisions. And I hope I'm tying this together right, but what I'm saying is over the years, and even in our marriage, I have learned, or I'm learning that romance is truly valuing another person. Romance is not manipulating a circumstance to get a feeling or a satisfaction, or to get somebody to think something special about you. Romance is knowing how valuable another person is, and through the hard times, through the good times, treating them with that kind of perspective, with that kind of intention to protect who they are, to protect what they are becoming, to protect their future, to protect how your actions toward them will affect them tomorrow, next week, in 5 years, or when they're married, or when they have children, or And so I think romance it's just like a lot of things, has been turned into, I'm a guy and I know how to be, I know how to be impressive. I know how to talk the right way. I know how to dress the right way and look the right way. And the girls like me, so I'm romantic. Romance is a little more difficult than that, but true romance is much more, and I think even eternally rewarding, because it has to do with actual love. It has to do with actually valuing somebody the way God does. And if you can see and think, what is beyond true romance? What is beyond true integrity? What's beyond those choices? I think there's a much stronger pull toward that than the romance of this world. I think the problem is not understanding, not seeing the comparison between the two, because what I would just say, self-centered romance, it ends in trouble, it ends in discouragement, it ends in taking advantage of another person, where true romance is, I don't want to do anything that would not build you up as a person, that would not bless your future, that would not help you to know God better and to know your value better.
Wow.
And even if that puts me in a position where, where I even look like the bad guy because I'm not doing what everybody else does, or I'm the weirdo, because
it's not following the ways of
yes,
the world.
So in what I guess I've learned that in the most ways, just knowing and seeing when you're going through something difficult, it's not the time for me to say, well, I'm just going to distance myself, and when you start treating me right again, then we can have something together and we can feel good about each other. But if I see you as if I see that you're going through something difficult as my spouse, then I should see the person I love is struggling with something, and I just want to support them. And it's really never should be about, what about me? Yeah, she's struggling, but what about me? Look at her struggle is she's been distant from me for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or and I just can't believe she's not thinking about me, and that's
a long time.
Yeah, and I'm not, so I'm just being very hypothetical. I'm just
yes, very hypothetical.
I'm just trying to think of how love, romance is all about integrity, the willingness to sacrifice for another person. If you're going to be somebody's knight in shining armor, you got to be willing to fight any battle, and with the intent of winning, not for everybody's good, not for the intent of getting something that benefits me. I think it can start with even being a man and seeing myself growing up. I think in the best case, it could start when a young boy is becoming a man and sees that one day he's going to be married and wants to start those habits before even a relationship, so that he entertains the idea of a relationship with a girl with that in mind, not, oh, she's pretty, oh, I hope we get to kiss, I wonder if she'll let me hold her hand. That's usually what's going on. But what if that's a very amazing person there, and they're very beautiful, and I see a lot of good things about that person, and maybe she's for me, but if not, I don't want to damage her in any way. And maybe at the very least, maybe I can help show her that, and if we are not meant to be together, I can make her feel like she's valuable enough to be that for somebody else. And that's such a missing element, such a missing art or a pursuit in our culture, but it's so right, it's so good, and it's not impossible. It actually, that's a wonderful experience. That's something that I could see, if I understood that at a young age, that would make me feel like, I have some pretty strong purposes as a young man, and some
job to do.
Instead of feeling like, oh, to be important, I've got to make sure that everybody views me the right way, and that I dress the right way, and have the right kind of shoes, talk to the right people, ignore the right people, and all the rest that comes with,
growing up.
Youth. So anyway.
It's so neat because you said choosing things that could help someone else but might make you look weird. I mean, isn't that what the Bible tells us to do all the time anyway? We always talk about how it's an upside down kingdom. Our king didn't come to be served, he came to serve. And so when you look at relationships that way, which, if you haven't been taught to do that from birth, it's really hard to change and to just flip that switch one day. But it is such a perfect understanding that love gives, and all of our actions. What is it? Romans, it said, consider this your spirit, your physical act of worship? Because I think Paul's talking about avoiding sexual immorality, but at the same time, it is so applicable to that, because of course that's what he's talking about. So yes, protect your body, and this is your physical act of worship. But even when we choose to just do something for someone else in kindness, or just give them a smile, or just withhold a harsh tone or a harsh word, that's an act of worship. That can be to a friend, to someone that you're in a dating relationship with, or a marriage, or wherever, a sibling relationship. Anything that you choose to do for the good of someone else is an act of worship.
Daniel 4:17, it says, "The Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth, and gives them to anyone he wishes, and sets over them the lowliest of people." And I thought that God just thinks about things a lot different than really people separated from God do. And one of the greatest enemies is the pride of life, and Satan was pretty much like the author of pride in this earth, and he's tried to develop a culture, and has, to where people try to rise up in power and status by their own pride. And God says that he sets over his kingdoms the lowliest of people. And so he sees humility and the willingness to sacrifice as someone he can bless. And so some look at us like we have a whole lot of responsibility, and some may look at us as, well, that's nothing compared to what I have to deal with every day. But I can see a pattern that the more you humble yourself before the Lord, then the more he invests into your life, because he can trust you with it, and that should humble us, because because any of us are susceptible to pride any day, in any moment, because I think that's our enemy's greatest weapon against us. So I just that verse is a very special verse. He does bless, and he won't withhold the blessing. He won't withhold good things. He won't withhold romance. He won't withhold good relationships. He freely gives that, but it takes humility to actually receive it, because the opposite is really demanding what you want in life, because you think you deserve whatever pleasure it may bring. And we all have that perspective, and probably all will fight it from time to time, as long as we're in this world, because there is a battle going on.
So good. Thank you.